I'd like to call to order this regular city council meeting of November 8, 2022. We're going to start off with a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, can I have the roll call, please?
Fiddlecombe.
Here.
Artino.
Here.
Claus.
Here.
Tap.
Here.
Dyke.
Here.
Greaves.
Here.
Peggy.
Here.
Next, entertain motion for approval of the minutes. Mr. Dyke.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the minutes on October 11th, 2022 for the regular council meeting as written.
Questions? Roll call.
Dyke.
Yes.
Greaves.
Yes.
Peggy.
Yes.
Fiddlecombe.
Yes.
Artino.
Yes.
Claus.
Yes.
Tap.
Yes. Next, we will have audience comments. Citizens may address their concerns to the city council. Please state your name and address for the recorded journal. There'll be a 3-minute time limit. Don't everybody rush up at once. Okay, moving on. Old business.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Graves.
I make a motion placing ordinance number 2022-55 on its third and final reading.
Questions on third and final reading? Roll call.
Greaves.
Yes.
Peggy.
Yes.
Fiddlecombe.
Yes.
Artino.
Yes.
Claus.
Yes.
Tap.
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes.
Mr. Schrader.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, members of council, staff, and guests in attendance, and those watching at home. This is ordinance number 2022-55, an ordinance amending and repealing codified ordinance section 915.19 relating to water rates, repealing codified ordinance section 915.20 relating to water for sprinkler systems, amending and repealing codified ordinance section 915.21 relating to multiple users of meters, and repealing codified ordinance section 915.22 relating to water tank sales.
Mr. Gibney.
Good evening, Council. We have made it to the third and final reading for this legislation. Again, to kind of give a summary and overview of the entire details of this change. This has passed through the Utility Committee, the Finance Committee, various council work sessions, as well as to this third reading. This reflects the 10-year 5% annual increase to internal water rates. Again, the key to that is the 3-year review process. Depending on what grants are obtained or zero to low interest financing on various jobs, we may be able to alter that as we go forward in 3-year increments. This also better defines or establishes definition of non-resident water rates. Again, that would be parcels that are outside the city but are served directly by our system. As mentioned by Mr. Schrader, this also includes some language repealing the sprinkler section, as that is an annual fee that was very limited in nature and consumed more time in the tracking and managing of that fee than what we actually received. We're better defining multi-users in section 915.21, basically putting some language in to easily track and categorize duplexes, triplexes, things of that nature served by a single water service line. Section 915.22, that's an obsolete option. That was the tank water sales that were available at the water plant that has not been active for some time. And also establishing 2 new small sections, 915.19 or 915.19 subsection C, the door tag fee, just to recover our own costs in labor and minor paper and materials, and subsection D, the non-sufficient funds recovery fee for any funds that are rejected or kicked back from the banks. Gladly take any questions on this.
Mr. Dyke.
I have a question. Why do you think it's taking this long to look into raising the rates? If it was last looked at 2007, I'm just curious.
It has been since 2007. The discussion has come up multiple times over various years. Never had the momentum to get to this level.
Okay.
We never did complete a comprehensive study to the degree that we did for this particular legislation.
And then one other thing, I just want to clarify, what is non-resident? Is that somebody that does not live here year-round, or is that somebody that's outside of the
No,
city
the
limits?
non-resident water, a good example of that would be Thunderbird Hills Golf Course. There is no water system outside of the city at that particular extremity. So we do provide the water to them. However, their parcel is not within the city. So it's a non-resident parcel. So they do have a slightly higher rate as they're not a taxpayer or any other residing in the city. Similar on Bogart Road further down as well.
And then just the final comment, I appreciate everybody's efforts in this, but I do plan to vote no. Just I don't want to see any increases. So it's nothing against all of the hard work that you guys put through. It's just my personal opinion. So just so you guys are aware of that.
Understood.
Thank you for all your efforts, though.
Mr. Artino.
We have an estimate on what this will cost the average user.
In the various tables, we do. Are you talking a year-to-year increase or?
What's the,
Quarterly.
well, like, what's the dollar cost quarterly? I know we talked about that.
Gotcha. So what we can look at here, and bear with me as I find it here. Give me just a second.
Like $2.50.
I was gonna say that, or even under.
Yeah, for instance.
$2.50.
Yes, it's very, and that's per quarter. Yeah,
Per quarter.
the availability charge,
70 cents.
I'm just looking at the chart that shows from January 1, 2023 to January 1, 2024. So that 1 year lookout, and your quarterly availability charge will go from $52.11 a quarter to $54.72 a quarter. So $2 and change.
So that's
Per quarter.
That's an average per quarter for the average resident.
Correct. That's the average service size, is the 5/8 by 3/4 and full 3/4. Yes.
I just wanted that to be read into the records.
Yeah, I think that's on appendix.
Yeah.
Yes. Appendix A.
Any more questions for Mr. Gibney?
I just want to say that, I appreciate that we haven't had the raise in rates since 2007, and obviously that shows that there was a lot of good budgeting and, grants along the way that's helped it last this long. I understand why. So while I don't, I buy water just like everyone else. I don't want my rates to go up, but I understand why. So I appreciate all the work that went into this.
Mr. Artino.
I think one other thing that needs to be mentioned, I know we talked about this. The city now is, we used to assess homeowners for new repairs or for new work, new main lines. stuff
Yes,
like
that is certainly worth mentioning. Prior to the Oklahoma neighborhood water line replacement, which 4 to 5 years ago off the top of my head, we used to assess water main projects. That was a means of somewhat deferring water rate increases, yet still generating revenue off of the individual property owners. Since we have gone away from that to funding those water main replacements ourselves, that cost again is something we have to burden that we didn't previously.
That can be an enormous cost.
Oh, very expensive. Yeah, those are some of our largest projects on capital.
And there's one big one coming up soon.
There is, South Main. Next up.
Very good. Any more questions for Mr. Gibney? Good. Final adoption.
Greaves,
Yes.
Hagee,
Yes.
Fiddlecombe,
Yes.
Artino,
Yes.
Claus,
Yes.
Cap,
Yes.
Dyke.
No.
Okay, now we'll move to new business. We have resolution number 97-2022.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Dyke.
I move that the 3 reading rule, excuse me, be be suspended and resolution number 97-2022 be placed on its first reading.
Questions on the 3 reading? Roll call.
Dyke,
Yes.
Greaves,
Yes.
Hagee,
Yes.
Fiddlecombe,
Yes.
Artino,
Yes.
Claus,
Yes.
Cap.
Yes. Mr. Schrader.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution number 97-2022, a resolution authorizing the city manager to accept the grant award and enter into a grant agreement with the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency for an H2 Ohio lead service line inventory and mapping grant in the amount of $50,000.
Mr. Gibney.
A much easier topic to discuss.
Okay.
So as mentioned, we will aggressively go after any grant opportunities that do come around. As part of Governor DeWine's initiative for H2 Ohio to improve water and wastewater infrastructure, they did release a grant opportunity. We're required by October of 2024 to identify the material of all service lines in the city on the private and public side of the meter pit. As such, they've made these funds available for any equipment, programming, anything you could procure that aids in that effort to identify those lines. So we did apply successfully. This grant will provide free of charge the equipment to establish a GIS system with geodes, programming, line locators, tablets to record that data and see that data out in the field as well. So this comprises everything that we need to really establish a system that is modern to today's standards in all of our vehicles and be able to track all of our assets.
Very good. Questions for Mr. Gibney?
I just had a comment real quick. On page 39, when it lists all the cities that are getting the grants, it lists Huron's county as Huron instead of Erie. Is that going to be an issue? Or
It won't. That's actually fairly common. They trip into that quite often.
Okay.
No, it shouldn't be an issue whatsoever. But
Let's check, 'cause it may not be here in Ohio. We'll do it.
right, exactly.
Very good. Any other questions for Mr. Gibney?
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Final adoption.
Dyke,
Yes.
Reeves,
Yes.
Hagee,
Yes.
Fiddlecombe,
yes,
Martino,
Yes.
Claus,
Yes.
Pap,
Yes. Next, we have resolution number 98-2022.
Mayor,
Mr. Artino.
I move to dispense with the three reading rule and place resolution number 98-2022 on its first reading.
Questions on the three reading? Roll call, please.
Martino,
Yes.
Claus,
Yes.
Pap,
Yes.
Dyke,
Yes.
Reeves,
Yes.
Hagee,
Yes.
Fiddlecombe,
yes,
Mr. Schrader.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution number 98-2022, a resolution authorizing the city manager to accept the proposal and enter into an agreement with OHM Advisors for engineering, construction, inspection services related to the Sawmill Parkway reconstruction project in an amount not to exceed $302,400.
Mr. Hamilton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the final piece of the puzzle for the Sawmill Parkway reconstruction project. This is for construction inspection in an amount of $302,400. That's a not to exceed number. There's $12,500 of in this proposal, and the $289,900 will be billed as used. That $302,400 will be the maximum budget for this, but hopefully we should come in underneath it.
Very good. Got all my comments in the legislative meeting, so,
Yes, it did, and I passed them along.
okay. Any questions for Mr. Hamilton? Mr. Artino?
We talked about the length of this project, how long it'll
So the latest discussions we have, Smith are hoping to be out there the latest by September of next year. So we won't start the concrete until the spring of next year. What we're going to try and do is we're going to try and hold together the cul-de-sac at the end to get RDAR and some of the other trucks, a turning circle at the end of the parkway. We'll do bits and pieces of the utility work over the winter time, but the majority of it will be from the spring through to the early fall.
The spring of 23.
Correct.
Any other questions for Mr. Hamilton?
Just a comment, talking to a few business owners on the Parkway, while they're very happy that the road is being redone, they're concerned about traffic flow during the construction, so just a comment. I wanted me to pass that on.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilman Hagee, we have all the contact information. We've started talking to the business owners. And as we work through the pour plan for that concrete, we will always maintain at least one lane all the way through. And any time that we are going to start closing off a property, we will find them another egress, so no one will be shut down at any time.
Very good. Any other questions?
This is concrete, right?
Correct, yes.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Hamilton. Final adoption.
Martino,
Yes.
Claus,
Yes.
Cap,
Yes.
Dyke,
Yes.
Greaves,
Yes.
Hagee, Holcomb,
Yes.
Next on the agenda is resolution number 99-2022.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Greaves.
I make a motion waiving the three reading rule and placing resolution number 99-2022 on its first reading.
Questions on the three reading? Roll call, please.
Greaves,
Yes.
Hagee,
Yes.
Fiddlecombe,
Yes.
Martino,
Yes.
Claus,
Yes.
Cap,
Yes.
Dyke,
Yes.
Mr. Schrader.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution number 99-2022. A resolution authorizing the city manager to accept the proposal and enter into an agreement with OHM Advisors for engineering, survey, design, and bidding services related to the Fabens Park Tennis Court renovation project in an amount not to exceed $35,000.
Mr. Steinwert.
As Mr. Schrader alluded to, this legislation is for the design portion of the Fabens Park renovation of the 5-court system. Will also consist of new surfacing on the 5 courts, perimeter fencing, a whole new net system with new posts and net system, then a drainage systems, which we're lacking right now, which probably caused a lot of the deterioration. So a full new drainage system to protect the courts for a duration. I guess I'd like to point out also the contributions from the Joint Rec District and the township that contribute to this project at Fabens. This is our last, I said I'd add one more thing. Did a master plan in 2010, finished it in 11, and this is the last piece of that puzzle from that plan. So excited to finally come bring that to us. Thank Mr. Lasko and Mr. Hamilton and a lot of their work in getting this to this point right now.
Very good. Any questions for Mr. Steinwert? Mr. Artino.
A gentleman called me about having some input to the striping on pickleball courts. We talked to him.
I haven't, but I know that's a plan. Our plan is to have striping for the pickleball, but if he has some specific ones,
I'll give you his name.
yeah, that'd be great.
I just want to show my appreciation to the Huron Joint Rec District and the township for providing money towards this.
Any other questions for Mr. Steinwert? Thanks, Doug. Final adoption.
Greaves,
Yes.
Hagee,
Yes.
Fiddlecombe,
Yes.
Martino,
Yes.
Claus,
Yes.
Cap,
Yes.
Dyke,
Yes.
Okay, next on the agenda is resolution number 100-2022.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Hagee.
move that the three reading rule is suspended and that ordinance 100-2022 be placed on its first reading.
Questions on the three
Mr.
reading?
Mayor, I'm sorry, that's a resolution.
Mm-hmm.
You said ordinance.
Oh, did I?
Can you reread or redo your motion?
Move that the three reading rule is waived and that resolution 100-2022 be placed on its first reading.
Very good. Questions on the three reading? Roll call, please.
Hagee,
Yes.
Fiddlecombe,
Yes.
Martino,
Yes.
Claus,
Yes.
Cap,
Yes.
Dyke,
No. Yes.
Greaves,
Yes. Really in no mood.
Mr. Schrader.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution number 100-2022. A resolution authorizing the city manager to accept the bid and enter into an agreement with Dymex Services, Inc. for services to be provided relating to the Huron Water Filtration Plant Boiler Replacement Project in an amount not to exceed $74,500.
Okay. Mr. Gibney.
Overall, the water treatment plant heats about 90% of the building using boiler heat. Those 3 current boilers have been failing for several years. We've had annualized costs in repair that have just been compounding year to year. Late last year, 2 of the 3 boilers completely dropped off. As we started up this season, we had the 3rd unit also drop off. We were able to scavenge some parts from the others to get 1 operable unit. But as such, we did identify the need to transition to a new heating system for a majority of the plant. We did receive initial quotes, which came in above the threshold for bidding. So then we turned around and went out to bid. Did receive a couple bids, with Dimec being the lowest and best bid. This would be for 2 units replacing our current 3. However, they can exceed the current BTU output of all 3 of our units. So they're larger units overall.
Good. Any questions for Mr. Gibney? Mr. Greaves.
How long do these usually last, son? What's our time frame?
It's hard to give a good lifespan based on the method of heating. The old cast iron boilers, you could get 30 years out of those elephants. They were gigantic. They weren't very efficient, though. The fire tube boilers, the high efficiency, closer to 20 years is typical. You'll have more efficiency, though, on your gas consumption overall.
Very good. Any more questions? Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
Final adoption.
Hagee,
Yes.
Fiddlecombe,
Yes.
Artino,
Yes.
Claus,
Yes.
Cap,
Yes.
Dyke,
Yes.
Greaves.
Yes.
Next on the agenda is resolution number 101-2022.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Klaus.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to waive the 3 reading rule and place resolution number 101-2022 on its first reading.
Questions on the 3 reading? Roll call, please.
Claus,
Yes.
Cap,
Yes.
Dyke,
Yes.
Greaves,
Yes.
Hagee,
Yes.
Fiddlecombe,
Yes.
Artino,
Yes.
Mr. Schrader.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution number 101-2022. A resolution authorizing the city manager to accept the proposal and enter into an agreement with OHM Advisors for engineering, construction, design, and bidding services related to the 2023 paving program in an amount not to exceed $33,500.
Very good. Mr. Hamilton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This proposal is for the design and bidding services for the 2023 resurfacing program, which will include Chaska, Old Homestead 1 and 2. This will actually be the city's biggest single-year investment in local roads. So we're excited to move ahead and tackle such a big project. This proposal is in the amount of $33,500, which will bring back the design and bidding services and fully laden out construction estimates.
Very good. Questions for Mr. Hamilton? Mr. Dyke.
What type of timeline will this take place, and how long will all this take? Do you have any idea?
We would like to get it out to bid over the winter, and then once we get the bids in, we can look at the schedules. By bidding it out over the winter time, we'll have more flexibility to when we can do the project next year.
Okay.
We'd obviously like to avoid the July 4th holiday. We know it's busy down there, so we should be able to work around a lot of the busier days.
I hope that's an initiative, because I'll probably get shot if you head in there. But I do plan on voting no for this, because I personally feel I live in that neighborhood. I've also gone through the Old Homestead 1 and 2. And, you know, I've been there since 2015, and there's been zero maintenance. You know, there's been low points, there's been cracks, you know, you see different lines. I think one of the things that's the most important when it comes to roads and longevity is maintenance. And I know that's before you guys' time, but I think that's something that we need to look forward down the road is maintaining these roads and making sure. So I know there's been a lot of individuals giving strong opinions regarding one way or another, but for me personally, I'm going to vote no. I think as far as Chaska specifically, there's a few areas where we could fix and then we could crack seal. I know right down my street on Kiwanis, it's fine. The entrance, yeah, it gets beat up. I mean, there's a lot of traffic going over that. You go down some of these other streets, I think they're fine. So I'm going to be voting no for that.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah.
Mr. Biddlecombe.
How many properties are actually in Chaska?
114.
114, yeah.
114. So I guess we got, I counted up 11 unique emails, and we had 2 citizens come in out of, what'd you say,
114.
There's roughly 6,900 residents in town who ultimately have to pay for this. So given the best information that we got from staff, the proposal is the blacktop. Now, obviously, Chaska is a historic neighborhood that has always had the concrete. So, to do the right thing for all the residents, I would have to vote yes. But my question is do they have grants for residential neighborhood streets, kind of like what we have for Sawmill Parkway? And then the other part of this question would be, do we maybe have the option of leaving it off this time around, doing Old Homestead, letting Chaska residents see how that comes out, and then look at Chaska next year?
Mr. Mayor, to Councilman Biddlecombe, to answer in 2 ways. One, funding for residential streets. There are no funding sources for residential streets. Any funding we get are usually either for industrial or for main thoroughfares. So unfortunately, there really isn't any money out there for residentials. As far as doing Old Homestead and leaving Chaska, when we get our design and when we go out to bid, they'll be brought back to council in 3 separate areas. There'll be Old Homestead 1, 2, and Chaska. So at that point, you'll be able to see each one individually, and you can choose then.
So we're just voting now then to essentially do the design,
right.
And for Chaska residents, if they still want to oppose, they have the opportunity then going forward to, give us their best complaint, and we can ultimately at a later date choose the neighborhoods that we do.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mr. Klaus.
Mr. Mayor, as Mr. Biddlecombe said, we've had a lot of input from citizens. I personally got involved in a lot of discussion. So I just had prepared a little statement, thought maybe there'd be more people here, but I'm going to read it into the record. First of all, I want to thank the residents who have provided input to councils and staff regarding street resurfacing project. Citizen input is what helps us consider all aspects of any project or issue and forces us to consider all angles, especially those not previously considered. I want to thank the city administration staff, OHM engineering team for the thorough review and analysis of the road pavement options for us to consider. The recent pavement condition report identified Chaska Beach and Old Homestead neighborhoods would be the next areas up for resurfacing in 2023. For the first time in Huron's recent history, councils and staff set out to be as transparent as possible about the pavement plan options and the process the staff went through to come to the recommendation they did. Senior city staff and city engineer met with representatives from all 3 affected HOA boards to explain the resurfacing plan options, staff's recommendations to council, and answer questions about that the HOA boards had. This is not mandated by charter, but we felt this was the right thing to do. Additional questions, comments, and concerns came in from other city residents. I want the citizens to know that I personally listened to your concerns and challenged staff and city engineers to prove to me that their recommended paving plan to do the selective concrete repair of existing failing concrete streets and overlay the surface with asphalt was the best and most fiscally responsible option for the city. I personally had multiple discussions with staff, engineers, and repeatedly questioned the numbers and the plan options. In addition, I reached out to adjacent township administrators to get input on their experience with local residential neighborhood streets that are paved in asphalt. And they stated, I quote, "Huron Township repaves all of our streets with asphalt and have for years with no complaints." One of the keys to the staff's recommendations are the budgeted and scheduled regular maintenance cycles that will allow these asphalt streets to remain in good condition well into the future. The current administration and council did not inherit a city with programmed maintenance plans in place. In the past, city streets were repaired as needed and when funds were available. I feel that we are being fiscally responsible by properly planning for and budgeting for future scheduled maintenance for all of our city streets. I know that some residents will disagree with my decision, and I feel that the asphalt streets are not as aesthetically appealing as concrete. This is a personal and subjective opinion and simply cannot outweigh what is best and most fiscally responsible option for the city as a whole. I've worked very hard to do my due diligence and be as informed as possible before making this decision. As councilmen, we are responsible for making decisions that are in the best interest of the city as a whole. One of the great things about this process is that I'm only one vote of 7 councilmen. The issue will need a majority council in support in order to proceed. I'm in support of staff's recommendation to proceed with the design and final engineering of asphalt over concrete repaving option for Chaska and Old Homestead neighborhood streets for 2023. Thank you.
Very good, Mr. Clough. Mr. Hagan.
Yeah, I just look a lot of discussion on this, a lot of emails, a little social media sprinkled in, but more importantly, a lot of individual discussions with people face to face, right? And I agree with Joe. I think the streets are fine as far as I'm concerned. But it's not about me and about the street right in front of my house, right? And we've had at least 2 people that I'm aware of, probably more, trip and hurt themselves, seriously, because of the condition of the streets. The streets need attention. In my discussions with people and the emails that we received and the smattering of social media, in my opinion, we have 3 groups. One group, about one-third vociferously against this. They do not want asphalt streets. I completely understand that. The second group, I don't want asphalt streets, but these streets are in terrible condition. I get it. I understand the budget issues. I understand the cost. Fine with me. And then a third that actually are looking forward to asphalt streets. Now, I'm sure I'll get a lot of pushback for that comment, but if you speak to people face to face, you can have an intelligent conversation, which is what I would absolutely prefer. And I always invite people to do that. So I will be voting yes on this, even though I'm fine with the streets the way they are, because I think it's our responsibility, number one, to be fiscally responsible, as Mark said, but also to look out for the safety of the folks that walk those streets. And a lot of people walk the streets of Chaska, not just Chaska residents. A lot of non-residents walk those streets. So I will be voting yes. Thank you.
Very good. Are there any other comments?
Yeah, I'd just like to add that since we're only voting on going out and doing the design, I would ask, like Joel was saying, Chaska residents, please come to the meeting once we have the design, view the design. At that point, speak your piece. Because the more people who we hear from in person, the better decisions we can make when we're dealing with policies like this.
Very good. Mr. Artino.
Mr. Mayor, I want to talk to transparency and the involvement of our citizens. I think everybody that knows me has said that we can't be a good council without input from the citizens. I've said that 17 years that I've been here. And I think that in the last few years, this council and our previous council have done all they could to be as transparent as possible. And I agree with Mr. Hague, getting out there talking to people and getting their input. Whether you agree with us or not, we need your input. And I think this just proves that this administration, this city staff, is doing all they can to try to be transparent and appreciate the citizens' input, no matter what it is. And we will make a decision that determine on how it impacts the entire city. We can't make decisions based on one area, one street. you know, we have to take a look at the impact it has, not just short-term and long-term. But I'd like to say thank you to the citizens. Your input is what makes us a good council.
Very good. Any other comments, questions? Final adoption.
Claus,
Yes.
Cap,
Yes.
Dyke,
No.
Reeves,
Yes.
Hagee.
Yes.
Biddlecombe.
Yes.
Martino.
Yes.
Next on the agenda, motion from Mr. Biddlecombe.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion setting a public hearing on an ordinance establishing a new section 1126.18 solar structures under chapter 1126 special provisions of the Planning and Zoning Code of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Huron for 6:30 p.m. on December 13th, 2022.
Went out of order, but we can go ahead and do this motion.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, yes.
Any questions on that motion? Roll call.
Biddlecombe.
Yes.
Martino.
Yes.
Claus,
Yes.
Cap,
Yes.
Dyke,
Yes.
Reeves,
Yes.
Hagee.
Yes.
Okay, now I will back up. Mr. Klaus.
Mayor, I make a motion and to have the first reading of ordinance number 2022-59. We will not be waiving the 3-reading rule.
Very good. Mr. Roll call.
Claus,
Yes.
Cap,
Yes.
Dyke.
Yes.
Reeves,
Yes.
Hagee.
Yes.
Biddlecombe.
Yes.
Martino.
Yes.
Mr. Schrader.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ordinance number 2022-59, an ordinance repealing Title 11, Urban Renewal, within the Administrative Code of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Huron.
Very good. Mr. Engel.
Yes, sir.
Sorry about
Good evening.
going
No,
out of order there.
That's all right. That's all right. Keeping it fresh. I get it. Love it or hate it, urban renewal is still on our books. It's completely obsolete at this point. We haven't had any federal funding for it since the 70s. So as staff is moving through our audit of the ordinances as a whole here, we're looking at ways to trim the dead weight out, so to speak. So we're recommending repealing this section, again, as it's completely obsolete. So.
Very good. Any questions for Mr. Engel?
I just have a couple comments. Page 72, the paragraph where it says whereas, it lists ordinance number 1996-27, adopted on May 9th, 1966. Should be 1966-27?
I'm sorry, is it at the end of, I don't have the actual ordinance in front of me, my apologies.
Whereas the city of Huron passed ordinance number 1996-27
probably a
on May
typo.
9th,
Yeah.
1966.
I was gonna say, yeah,
We need to amend.
Okay. The only,
Claus, can you amend? Correct 1996.
I amend the motion to correct the the reference to 1996 to 1966.
Mr. Mayor, point of order, please. May I?
Schrader.
Just let the record reflect that when we have the second reading, the modified version as made with Mr. Klaus will be reflected in the next distribution on, what would it be, November 22nd. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank
Very
you.
good. Any other questions for Mr. Engel? Or comments?
I'd just like to say that I know this was very contentious back in the 60s, and from a history standpoint, I'd be glad to see it go.
Before you were born.
Yeah.
Mr. Klaus was born.
Me too.
Yeah, well, Sam, yeah.
Not before you were born.
I was.
You helped build those buildings, right? Okay, so there's no action taken on that.
Yeah.
Very good. All right, next on the agenda, I know he's been waiting patiently. It's the city manager's discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, those in the audience, those watching at home. I just wanted to start off with a few updates related to the Warren Slag Properties on River Road that was brought to council a couple meetings ago related to that acquisition. The city did receive final comments back on Friday from the sellers. Mr. Schrader and I sat down today and sent back our final comments, but I believe we should have a fully executed purchase agreement within the next handful of days, if not by the end of this week. We are securing proposals for our due diligence activities, which we will commence once the purchase agreement is signed. We have a proposal from OHM Advisors, who will be handling the surveying work, and with Manick and Smith Group to handle the Phase 1 environmental assessment activity. Again, we'll execute these proposals as soon as the purchase agreement is signed. Also want to mention, we're still really at the infancy stages of what the entirety of the acreage can be for the city. We do know we want to move the service complex out to that location, but whatever we do put at that site, we know that there's going to be infrastructure costs, likely roadways, underground utilities. So we've already begun the process of seeking funding to be able to offset any local costs for that infrastructure work. We met with officials today related to what's called a rural industrial revolving loan, which actually is 50% forgivable at the completion of a project. In essence, grant funding. And then also, I previously mentioned we met with the Economic Development Administration, who's our funder on the Sawmill Parkway project. Now that we're past sort of the COVID era where there were a lot of stimulus funds to receive Economic Development Administration funding moving forward, counties are required to have in place what's called a comprehensive economic development strategy. Erie County is one of about 3 counties in the entire state that does not have one. So at the moment, moving forward, we are ineligible for EDA funding. We've already commenced the process with Erie County and in partnership with Huron County to get what's called a SEDS in place. It'll probably be a 6 to 9 month process. Once this is in place, though, this opens up EDA funding for both counties moving forward and multiple jurisdictions. So we'll keep council apprised as that moves forward. Also, I believe some council members were copied on an email from the Ohio Department of Transportation as relates to the US 6 project. They are actually looking to commence their engineering and survey work as early as January of 2023. I'll just remind council and the public, the city did commit $1 million to that project, which will ultimately be funded by the Sawmill Creek TIF. So we're going to be talking to ODOT later this week or early next week as to when our funds will be contributed to the project, but that likely will be in 2023, which we have budgeted and planned for. Also, related to the East Side Sidewalk project that'll connect to Huron Green and Huron Township, we are putting the finishing touches on the design. I do know there was a request to look at a small sidewalk connection between Gateway and Anchorage on the north side of the road. I do want to thank Councilman Claus for contact information for the 3 property owners that we would need to work with to make that connection. Mr. Hamilton and staff from OHM has met with those 3 property owners who are open. And because of that, we are now starting the process for drafting up right-of-way acquisition documents so that we can make that final connection for those residents. So we're looking forward to adding that to the project. Also, just one last plug. I know I've mentioned this at the last couple council meetings, but I believe through the end of the week, we're still going to have our Main Street survey open to the residents. We actually had a touch base call yesterday, I believe, but we are up to 563 respondents, which is a really phenomenal number. That does not include what the feedback we've received from the steering committee or feedback that's received from Pumpkin Festival, but I believe we're going to close that out by the end of the week in anticipation of our joint council and planning commission meeting next week. So appreciate all the work of everyone getting that out and publicized. That's really a tremendous turnout for that survey. Several parks and recreation updates. We're happy to see that the shade structure has been delivered and almost installed at the fish cleaning station. Based on that schedule, we're still anticipating final work to be completed second, third week of November. So glad to see that finally on site and hopefully wrapped up here shortly. Speaking of
next week.
Understood. A few updates on the Huron Joint Rec District. We've both met with Huron Township and the Huron School District related to contributions for 2023. We are happy to report that the proposed contributions have decreased ever so slightly for both of our partners. The township has viewed the proposed budget very favorably and will likely be acting on the HJRD agreement here at an upcoming meeting, likely still within 2022. We also met with the school district administration that was also pleased with the proposed budget. They have asked us to finalize the HJRD agreement, which we're in the process of redlining at the moment. And that'll probably go to their board in December or January for consideration with the school district. Also, talking about upgrades at Fabens, we are in the process of securing proposals from qualified firms to undertake crack sealing, seal coating, and striping of the entire Fabens Park parking lots and entry drives. I assume that work's going to begin in 2023 at this point, but we're excited for that upgrade as well. And then also wanted to touch base on a project that's probably been on the city's capital improvement plan for a decade plus at this point, and that's related to the potential construction of a multi-purpose field house. We are in the process of organizing a kickoff brainstorming session regarding the potential development of a field house. These conversations are meant to be very exploratory to determine the appetite for such a facility amongst many stakeholder groups, and start to begin the conversations about potential locations, amenities in the facility, a fundraising plan, and how operations would be handled and funded. We're hoping to have a kickoff meeting this month that's going to include representatives from the city, HJRD, Huron Township, Huron Schools, and the boosters. We'll keep council apprised of these discussions as they progress. Moving on to finance, the 2023 budgetary meetings have commenced as of October 24th. So far, we've heard presentations from utilities, streets, planning and zoning, parks and recreation, and most recently, public safety. Our next meeting will be related to capital and city debt, which will happen on November 14th. All these meetings are 4 o'clock in the council chambers. Also, the 2021 financial audit has kicked off this week. Auditors of the state will be conducting the audit, which is expected to expected to be completed by the end of 2022. We are expected to be back on schedule with the annual audit process starting in 2023, which is usually completed by July of the following year. Also wanted to acknowledge some good work of the fire department. Firelands Health recently congratulated the fire department and several other local fire departments who received the American Heart Association Mission Lifeline Gold Plus Award. This program is designed to showcase pre-hospital agencies nationwide for excellence in heart attack and stroke care. EMS personnel are the first care providers to patients suffering from acute emergencies. EMS's role in the care system for these patients is crucial and often sets the course for the patient's outcome. So great work by our fire department. Also related to the fall newsletter, the fall winter edition is finalized. A big thank you to all the departments and department heads for their efforts in the publication, and a special thank you to Jen Kilberry for managing the effort. We've sent the newsletter off to Loris Printing for publication. I anticipate those will be in the mailboxes in the next week or so. Also moving forward in 2023 as we look to grow our partnership with the school district, they've approached us about a partnership moving forward in which the school district would be able to have space and features within the city's newsletter, both in the spring and the fall. So we're looking forward to being able to again deepen that partnership with the school district. Looking forward to upcoming meetings. Board of Zoning Appeals will be Monday, November 14th in the council chambers. Planning Commission Wednesday, November 16th at 4 o'clock in the council chambers, which will be followed by a joint work session of City Council and the Planning Commission, which will be 5 o'clock in the council chambers related to the Main Street project. And then the next City Council meeting is Tuesday, November 22nd at 6:30 in the council chambers. And then finally, a last early plug for Huron Winterfest, which will be Saturday, December 3rd. From 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock p.m. And then at 6 o'clock p.m. we will have fireworks. So there'll be more to come and lots of press around that, but wanted to start plugging that early. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Very good. Any questions for Mr. Lasko? Mr. Hagee.
Yeah, just two quick questions, Matt. The Route 6 Phase 2, the design and engineering starting. We still need a final design, right? That's
Yes.
still open. We had a long discussion about the traffic circle coming off of.
So, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilman Haggie, slight difference. So what I mentioned in the manager's report is related to the US 6, which will be from Rye Beach west, not Route 6 Phase 2.
Okay.
So yes, that is still going to have to go through a design process. Yes, I should have been more clear.
I got you. No, my bad. And then finally, just on the field house, there's been work on this in the past. There's been committees that have looked into this. So just want to let you guys make sure you're aware of that in case you've got some information that might be beneficial.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions for Mr. Lasko? Mr. Biddlecombe?
On the subject of Winterfest, actually had a resident comment on the Facebook post that I shared that said that that would be a good event to have Dora in town. Is there any talks on bringing that discussion up again?
Not the Explorer.
I was going to ask the same thing. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilman Biddlecombe. What I would say, and others feel free to add on, I do know that the Dora exploration is something we want to consider as part of the Main Street process. In addition to getting public feedback on amenities they want to see and land uses they want to see, we're also looking at changes to the zoning code, which could include the institution of a Dora, and if a Dora, where would it be? But I would agree. It's an event like that showcases the potential of such a zoning change, but that will be included as part of the Main Street process and considerations and recommendations.
Maybe next year.
Any other questions for Mr. Lasko? Comments? Very good. All right, next is the mayor's discussion. So just a couple things. Again, I want to thank the staff for all their hard work. There's a lot of things going on in town, in the community. Like Mr. Tino pointed out, working with the community is what we have to do, all right? But we also have to be responsible for the community as a whole, everybody. Believe me, we put a lot of faith in the staff, engineers, and all our departments, and they do work really hard. I want to thank Mr. Gibney, Mr. Steinwert. I know I gave you a lot of grief on this fish cleaning station, but I catch a lot of grief on this thing, so. But we did hear Mr. Lasko give us a date, so you're off on that. The other comments I've got is the Main Street Committee. I want to thank you guys. And like Mr. Lasko said, 500 and some replies as far as, I guess, suggestions and stuff and what they want to say. That's great. And lastly, I want to thank the staff and community. I just want to thank them. I had a kind of a rough time a couple weeks ago, and I got a lot of support. So I just want to thank you guys. That's all I got. For the good of the order, Mr. Biddlecombe.
All right. I'd like to thank staff for their continued hard work. Congratulations to our fire department on receiving the Lifeline Gold Plus Award from Firelands Health. I'd like to congratulate the girls volleyball team on an excellent season. And congratulations to the girls cross country team who finished 11th in the state meet, as well as Kennedy Schleshman who finished 15th and Jaden Towns who finished 22nd, and both earned first team All-Ohio awards. I'd like to thank all of our veterans for your service, and I wish you all a happy Veterans Day on Friday, November 11th. After a big win over Edison in round 1 of the Division 5 Region 18 football playoffs, the Tigers unfortunately ended their season 9-3 with a hard-fought loss to Coldwater in the regional quarterfinal. Other home games coming up, we have boys basketball on November 19th and 21st. Please come out and support all of our student athletes, and go Tigers.
Very good. Mr. Artino.
I would just like to say that, every decision that's made by this council is usually, and not usually, always backed up by a lot of hard work by our staff, by the employees of this city that, implement those decisions. And, and our support, whether it be OHM engineering or our additional committees and boards of volunteers. There's a lot of work that goes behind those decisions, and I hope that everybody gets a chance to explore some of that and just see how much work is really done. This council doesn't take any decision lightly, and neither does our staff and our employees. So thank you.
Very good. Mr. Klaus.
That's all I have. I think you've heard enough words from me.
Okay, very good. Mr. Dyke.
Thank you, everyone, for everything. Have a great week. 2
Mr.
weeks.
Greaves.
Nothing at this time.
Mr. Hake.
Yeah, just a couple things. Everyone get out and vote. I don't know if there's still enough time left, but if there is, get out and vote. I want to spike something Sam said earlier about the feedback, because I think I underplayed it when I spoke. I really appreciate all the feedback that we got regarding the streets. Whether I agree with the feedback or not, it was probably the most interaction we've had since the famous bike lane. But that, I'm just going to repeat what Sam said. We need that. We need that kind of input, whether it's the input we agree with or don't agree with. So I really appreciate that, and please keep it coming. And then just a quick congrats to the EMS and fire department on the recognition from Firelands. I don't see anybody here other than Patrick. So Patrick, you can take this one, right? Congratulations.
Very good. Okay, with that, we are going to have an executive session. Mr. Klaus.
I make a motion that we go into executive session to consider compensation of a public employee. I'd like to invite Mr. Schrader and by phone, if needed, Corey Swaysgood and Andrea Rocco.
Very good. You're
I'm sorry, by phone, did you?
Yes, by phone, Corey Swaysgood and Andrea Rocco as needed.
I'm sorry, Claus,
Yes.
Cap,
Yes.
Dyke,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Hagee,
Yes.
Fiddlecombe,
Yes.
Artino.
Yes.
They're back in session. There will be no actions taken. I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Biddlecombe,
I make a motion that we adjourn tonight's meeting.
roll call, please.
Middlecombe?
Yes.
Martino?
Yes.
Claus?
Yes.
Cap?
Yes.
Dyke?
Yes.
Reeves?
Yes.
Peggy?
Thank you.
Huh?